Hi, this is Candace, and here are 10 tips to help you prepare for the TOEFL or some things that you need to know before taking the TOEFL test. The first one that you need to know has to deal with time because this is a 4-hour test and that is a long test. To prepare for it, you want to think about preparing for a marathon. And to do that, you wouldn't just show up to the marathon and run the marathon. You would want to have some strategies and some practice in place before you do that. Otherwise, you end up burnt out and tired and sometimes unable to finish. So, the first thing you need to do is develop a practice plan on how are you going to conquer this 4-hour test. And to do that, maybe you want to build a plan that just has you build up in small ways for each skill area. So, for example, for reading, to build up to those 20-minute readings, and for the listening to build up to a 5-minute reading, and then for a speaking to build up to being able to talk for 60 seconds about something, and sometimes something academic, and then for writing, being able to write for 30 minutes at a time, and so that for reading, then you might end up going around 60 minutes or longer. For the listening, you might end up listening for about 60 minutes or longer. For the speaking, you might end up speaking around 20 minutes or longer. And then for the writing, around 55 minutes. These are all approximate numbers, but that's just a general idea to get you started for planning how to build up to that. Some ideas that you could use to build up to it are, if you're trying to build up to a 20-minute reading, maybe you want to start with 5 minutes of reading every day, then 10 minutes, then 15, and building into 20 minutes. For listening, starting with 1-minute listenings, building into 2 minutes or 3-minute listenings, then maybe 4 or 5-minute listenings, and just trying to extend the time that you're able to listen in English a little longer. For speaking, maybe you start with speaking for 30 seconds and then you build into 45 and 60 seconds. And I recommend trying to be able to talk for at least 2 minutes because then 1 minute seems really easy. And then for writing, try to write maybe 10 minutes every day, then maybe 15 or 20 minutes every day, and build into that 30 minutes a day. And it all kind of depends on how much time that you have, but you just want to take it a day at a time. Before you take the test, find out, how much time do you have? Do you have a week? Do you have a month? Do you have 3 months, 6 months, a year, or more? I recommend planning in advance at least a few months, if not a year. And it also depends on your English level and your background, and then make a plan based on how much time that you have. So, the more time that you have, probably the easier it is to build some of these skills. But whatever you've got to work with, make a plan. Then you want to build your English muscle. So, your general and your academic English, you need a balance between both of these. So, being able to just communicate in English versus talking about things that are more academic, maybe current events. And then you want to be able to build this and balance this in reading, listening, speaking, and writing. So maybe you're going to read a fiction book that has some general communicative English, but then maybe you read a nonfiction book that has a little more academic English. And then the same thing for listenings. Maybe you listen to something that's just for fun on YouTube, and then maybe you listen to something on TEDx that's a little more academic. And then for speaking, maybe you try and talk to people that you meet in grocery stores about general things. And maybe you talk, to philosophy with a professor or something. And then for writing, maybe you're going to write some reflections that are a little bit more general. And then maybe you write more essays that are a little more academic. The second tip that you need to know is that you need the right tools. You wouldn't want to run a marathon in these shoes. You would want more proper shoes for running a marathon. And for the TOEFL test, here are some tools like books that you could get that help you prepare for the TOEFL. You might download some apps. You could take some English classes or some TOEFL classes. And you could also find a tutor or a study buddy to help you practice and stay on track. Then you want to build your memory skills. So the third tip is trying to find ways or games that can help you build memory skills. They could be fun games, but during the test sometime it may ask you to remember something. And so building this is a good way to practice. You could also look at pictures for 30 seconds and say, okay, what did you see? Or take 30 seconds to look at a picture and then describe, how many circles did you see? How many people did you see? Where were they? Then the next tip will be to practice taking notes because for This you don't have to memorize everything, of course, but as you're writing down, it will help you focus what you're listening to, what you're speaking about, what you're writing about, and hopefully that will help you to be able to answer the questions. If anything, it will keep you alert and awake. And so you want to learn abbreviations and symbols that you can use to help take notes. Then you want to develop the ability to overcome distractions because maybe while you're doing the speaking part, there might be other test takers who are doing the speaking part. It might be a little hard to concentrate. You will have noise canceling headphones, and that will help. But I highly recommend that you take a practice test and try and do it in an area that's a little bit distracting. It might be a little harder to focus so that you can try and practice focusing in a distracting environment, but also that you can develop a plan and see what are your strengths, what are your weaknesses before you go and take the actual test. Then you want to get a good night's sleep because for a 4-hour test, especially the listening and the reading sections are long and academic, and they can put you right to sleep. And so you want to make sure that you've had a good night's sleep the night before. Then the day of, wake up early, and that way you can kind of warm up your brain, maybe do some exercises, and prepare for the test mentally. Eat a good breakfast because after 2 hours, if your tummy is grumbling, it might distract you and you might not be able to do as well. And finally, you want to practice positive psychology or something that's called happy psychology. Because if you tell yourself positive things, it opens up your brain and provides circulation. But if you tell yourself negative things, it kind of closes down your brain and it may reduce the ability to do well on the test. So you want to practice this. And you might also practice some breathing exercises to help you calm yourself and calm anxiety during the test. Tell yourself positive things. You can do this. Or tell yourself, maybe I don't understand this word, but I can guess what the context is for this word. And then as you do that, it's going to open up your brain and say, okay, we're present in this moment. We're going to do our best, and we're just going to keep learning. And that's awesome. So, to just sum up these 10 tips, you want to come up with an English study plan. You need the right tools to take the test. Practice memory games to improve your memory. Learn how to note take for various skills. Try to overcome distractions and create a place where you can focus. Definitely take a practice test before the actual test. Get enough sleep the night before. Wake up early. Eat a good breakfast, and practice positive psychology. And as you try and incorporate these tips into your schedule, this can help you build that endurance and your ability to do well on the test. And you will be able to focus and have those strategies that you need to be successful. So keep studying and good luck.